I really thought I was going to come out here and do an update video of my geese because I've been promising it, and there's a couple of things going on with their size, the sounds they're making, and their neck feathers. But every time I get close enough, they just run away, and they're running into fenced areas where it's really hard to kind of video. And so I can't capture it really well. So that video is still to come at some point this week, but it looks like I'm going to have to sneak up on them because they want to be around me when I don't have the camera in my hand and then run off the minute that I start recording. Little booger heads like that. So you can see they're kind of in this messy area, and this is where we pulled the pond from a couple of weeks ago. So I figured since I can't do a goose update, I can do an update on all of the ducks because a lot's changing with them too. They're really starting to feather in well, especially on the darker colored ducks. You can really see their feathers coming in, and I'll zoom in a little bit more. You can see the kind of spots. Basically, they have a mallard coloring, but it's significantly darker. So these are really cool ducks. They have what I like to refer to as the dark Campbell color pattern. I'm kind of paying attention to this one little duck back here. If you notice, he's actually making a really weird motion, but you actually can't hear him because he makes a little whispery sound. But he was eating a fly, and I think it went down the wrong way. I'm not sure why he's not walking over there and getting some water. He could just be vocalizing, and because of where I'm at by the other ducks, I can't really hear him. But if you look at him, his bill is actually a green color versus all the other ducklings. Their bills are darker. They're more black or really dark gray. And this one does have an orangish colored bill, even though it's still kind of dark. So I'm wondering if this is also a drake or if it's just a female with a funny colored bill. That's something that I'll definitely be paying attention to as they continue to grow, because what we don't want is a huge number of drakes. So whatever drakes out of these, let me try that again. Whichever one of these ends up being drakes, or however, they're either going to get rehomed or end up in freezer camp, because we do homestead everything that's extra. If we don't sell it or find a home for it, we do use it to nourish our family, and that's just the reality of the situation. So it looks like one for sure down here, that one down here making all the funny faces, it is a drake based off its green bill. And its feet are also a little different in color, they're not black. And then this one down here with its orange bill is either an off-colored female or it's also a male. And I can't really see its feet too well, but based off of where it's, what I'm seeing, it looks like its feet could be orange in color too, which can still be an off-color female. The males tend to have really green colored bills over time, so it does make it a little easier to tell. Now, as far as I can tell, all the rest are females. For sure, this khaki colored one is a female. All of the Welsh colored ones look like females, and a couple of them are quacking, so that's really cool to hear. Once your birds start quacking, you really know that they're females. Now, usually my ducklings start quacking around 3 weeks of age. This time they didn't really start quacking, and now they're until much later. You know, they're 6 weeks old now. They're pretty up there, so I would expect them to be much more vocal than they are. And also, I would expect them to start feathering much more quickly because they're kind of behind as far as feathering goes. So now that it's warming up, I'm hoping that they'll feather in a lot faster. And look at them. They're just all kind of hanging out here. But I love their colors. It's so great to have all the color varieties and watch them grow and how they form. Aren't they so cute? And what you're not seeing in this picture, I'm sorry if it's kind of shaky or blurry, I'm in a weird position here by the fence, is the geese are actually fairly close. There were all the adult ducks hanging out here, and the geese have scared them off. And of course, now that I pan the camera in and I'm saying geese, they're running off again too. So it's just funny how they do that. So I'm gonna kind of turn in over here. Now what you're seeing is the run area, which is a massive, well over 1,000 square foot area. Just one side is well over 900 square feet. That doesn't include the other side. So this is just a huge area just for their run and their coop, and we're working on fencing in the backyard so they'll have more area. Now we did have temporary deer fencing, and they were ranging within that fencing through our backyard and in part of our front yard, but the little boogers just kept pulling at the fencing with their bills and ripping holes in it or going under really low areas and escaping. One time I saw an insect, I think it was like a dragonfly or something. It landed on the fence, and one of the ducks went to grab it and ripped a hole in it, like right in front of me, and went through the hole. And I was just like, wow, that's crazy, you know? So they really do just do whatever they want, it seems. They're very clever, so I kind of have to keep an eye on that. But these are our adults, and you can see there's 3 hens and 1 drake. These are all of our Welsh Harlequins, and their older flock of girls. They're over 2 years old now. So these are some of my favorite girls right here. Absolutely favorite. And you can see where some logs have kind of fallen in the back, which I'm sure I've shown in the past, but because of all the water that comes into our backyard during rainy season, the trees are they just cannot handle it. They're starting to break apart and die. It doesn't help that a lot of them have been here for decades, and they're just kind of reaching the end of their lifespan, especially with all of these heavy vines growing on them. So that actually isn't helping at all. And aren't they crazy? And then finally, as far as ducks go, we have these two. Shaniqua is the cream colored one. She has such a cool pattern, and she is part mallard and part Welsh Harlequin. So it's pretty cool, just the color patterns, that when you start mixing ducks, what they look like. Because I've shown in the past different Welsh Harlequin crosses, and even with just one mallard drake, they all have completely different colors. So it's really cool. This is one of my favorite color patterns I've ever seen, and she is a permanent member of the flock now. This dude is Quackers. He was a meat duck that was part of a partial trading that we did for some duck eggs, and we got cash and ended up with some duck and chicken eggs. That's where our current baby chicks came from. And Quackers was supposed to go in the freezer, but he ended up getting named before we even left their property. And that's crazy, because I try to teach my kids not to get attached to animals, and for the most part they don't, but they really seem to like Quackers. So we brought him home, and I really have been wondering, like, is Quackers a male or female? And then I did a video where I actually got close enough, and he was making a drake sound instead of quacking. He's usually incredibly quiet. Well, today him and this little lady were in the pond, and I had absolute concrete proof he was a drake, because not only was he breeding, but you know, you were able to tell for sure that he had male parts. So that is definitely a drake. There's no denying it. He is a massive duck. So the plan now is to maybe get some more of these Pekin ducks to start a meat flock. But the reality is most of us don't care for duck meat. I'll eat it, and the kids will eat it depending on how it's cooked. But they really do prefer chicken. And so while we'll eat duck meat, it's not our first choice. Pekin might be a little different because it's not quite as red of a meat as some ducks, like Muscovy, also called Muscovy, depending on where you're located. And let's see, and some duck meat is can be greasy, and it is a darker meat, and if you don't really care for the greasy texture or the slightly different taste of duck, then this may not be an option for you. So I think for the most part we may focus on mostly ducks for eggs and not so much for meat. Sometimes you don't really have a choice when you're hatching out ducks to grow out for eggs and a portion of them are drakes. You know, if you're already homesteading, to fill your family's freezer with both meat and vegetables, then it just makes sense regardless of the size, even if it's a small breed of duck, to go ahead and use that to feed your family. I always say if you're willing to eat quail, then eating the drakes that you have, even if it's from a 4.5-5 pound breed of duck, it'll be worth it for you. I just want to tell you that the ducks that you get in the stores, do not expect that from your own flock unless you're growing a commercial breed of duck, because your own flock of ducks will be significantly smaller at an older age. They are not a commercial breed of duck. They are not being used for meat primarily. They are mostly, you know, if they're mostly for eggs and they just happen to be able to be used for meat, then that's kind of, you know, it's just something to take into consideration, because I think people get surprised when they have a standard breed of chicken or a dual purpose chicken or a dual purpose duck and they're so much smaller than what they're used to at the grocery store. They don't think it's worth it. For me, it is worth it, but I think that it's important that people understand what they're getting into. You know, if you're looking for Pekins, then that's a more commercial breed used for meat more often. They're going to be significantly larger. I am having the worst time staying focused the last couple of days, especially the kids coming in here, moving stuff around, asking questions, and just like, I know I'm repeating myself a lot and I apologize for that. I know that can be kind of frustrating when you're watching a video and someone's just being really repetitive or not necessarily always making sense. And I'm not a multitasker, I will tell you that now. If the kids come out here and they're talking to me, then I have no idea what the video is about anymore. I lose my train of thought so quickly and it's really hard for me to get back on track. So I do apologize for that. But, you know, family will always come first here. That's a big part of why we do what we do. And so, you know, I am really grateful to have them be a part of the process. But I will tell you, man, it can be difficult to do both sometimes. It really can. So, look at these geese. They will eat some grain. So you're seeing they're eating some grain now. This is actually a mix of grain. It's actually was not intended to be feed. What it is like a 5-grain cereal mix that I bought to bring inside of the house and to use for flowers and things like that. The issue is that we ended up getting pantry mouse and they chewed through the bag and laid eggs in there. So it wasn't something that I wanted to feed my family anymore. And I thought, well, this is really good quality. It would be perfect for the birds. So I put it in here. Now, the geese do eat a lot of turnips and things from our garden. They all do, the ducks and geese, but they will also eat some grain. The great thing about geese is, unlike ducks, they don't require grain to gain weight. Now, ducks can grow off of grass and free ranging, but I find that they're just the one animal that always seems to need supplemental feed compared to everyone else. So I think that's really important to take into consideration. Oh, I hear a baby duckling over there peeping, but I don't actually see what's going on. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me kind of zoom in. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all my ducklings. So who is making all of that noise? Ah, you know what? I bet it's some of the baby chickens making a similar kind of tweeting noise. I know everything's a mess in here, guys. I'm going to get things kind of sorted where they can range out there where all the grass is again, instead of having to keep putting it in here. But all of this space, I'll close off sections of it and go ahead and make it into gardening spaces. And then when gardening season ends, the birds will be let back in here to clean up. So it's a really cool way to use all of our poultry. But I'm gonna go ahead and get off of here before this video gets too repetitive or I continue to lose my focus. I know that's kind of been the theme of the week, so thank you guys for hanging out with me and checking out all of our poultry and some updates on them.